2, 1, and we are live. Welcome to the Standout CEO Show, your gateway to building a standout business in a crowded market with your personal brand. And today we are talking all about LinkedIn and how you can engage new leads on this platform and why LinkedIn is such a great platform for doing this. You know, if you've been playing around with LinkedIn recently, or maybe you're one of these people who hasn't been to the platform in a while, well, you should take a new look at it. And it's one of the places that I believe is probably the most valuable platform to be spending your time right now in terms of growing your business and growing your brand and growing your online presence these days. So there's lots to know about LinkedIn, and I've brought a special guest. His name is Scott Aaron, who is a LinkedIn master. He's a coach who shows people how they can use LinkedIn to grow their brand and to grow their business. And we're going to take a deep dive into all of that. Is something that he calls, his strategy is called building the LinkedIn layer cake. So if you're interested in finding out what that is, stay tuned and let's start the show. All right. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brad, grateful to be here and, excited to talk about all things LinkedIn and the layer cake as you stated.
Yeah. So as we're starting, I would like you to talk about what's the big thing that when people get on LinkedIn, what do you see as probably the biggest mistakes that they're making as they're on the platform and as they're using the platform?
Well, I would say the number one problem that a lot of people are openly complaining about is all the spam and the selling and the pitching that people are doing, whether it's in the messages that they're sending to new contacts, the multiple messages that they're sending to their connections, the content that they're posting. And I feel very passionately about this, that if people took the notion and understanding that those that build the best businesses are also those that really double down on forming genuine, authentic, and real connections within the network that they're building, those are the businesses that are going to come out on top. And there's a lot of people that are getting extremely frustrated, not with the platform, but with how people are using the platform. And I call it this spray and pray methodology, in the sense that, people think they get on the LinkedIn and they're just going to send out, as many connection requests as they can. They're just going to copy and paste messages and just blast them all around to connect with people in that way. And that's not how businesses are built, but it's also not how connections are formed. So when people stop focusing on selling and pitching and they start focusing on connecting and rapport building, that's when things really start to shift. So kind of in coming full circle with this, the biggest thing and the biggest mistake that people are making is they're spraying and praying too much, selling and pitching, and they need to stop doing that and start building more meaningful, genuine, authentic connections with the network that they're building on the platform.
Yeah, I really see parallels between the offline world and the online world in this case. I mean, whenever you go to a networking event or a gathering of people, there's always that individual in the room who's going around with their stack of business cards and just like, here's my card. and spending, less than 2 seconds with you, maybe doing their elevator pitch and then moving on to the next person. And if you like, no one likes that person. And in fact, when they see them coming, it's like, oh gosh, I have to go, excuse me, I have to go get another drink or something. And when this happens online, basically you're creating this huge aversion to your activity, and it's a real problem. I mean, I know for myself, anytime someone is reaching out to me with a connection request, I'm highly suspect, because 9 times out of 10, if I just say yes, then the very next thing that they'll do is hit me up with, here's my pitch, here's my thing. Would you like to get on a call with me? Like, I've got this great service for you, and how would you like to hire me to help you out with whatever? And I just can't see that working.
Yeah, Brad, you bring up such a great point, because my wife and I talk about this often, where we're not really sure what's happened to business professionals. And this is not pandemic related. This has nothing to do with how things have been a little bit weird the last 2.5 years, since, the world has been kind of, flipped upside down with a lot of the things that are going on globally. This was happening before then. Something that I tell people all the time is, no one buys anything from anyone that they don't know, like, or trust. And if I'm going to be completely honest and transparent, I feel that most business professionals are lazier than ever. Meaning they don't want to do the things that are required to build a lifelong business. They're more interested in, making that quick cash, right? Just as you said, I'm going to make connections with people, and then as soon as they accept, boom, I'm going to sell and pitch them. If they don't want it, great, I'm going to go on to the next person. What kind of business are you building? And does that feel good? And this is the one thing that I do speak about, is that turning the mirror around. How would you like it if someone pitched and sold you on something that you didn't want or need? So the one thing that I constantly remind people is, don't do anything that, if it was done to you, you wouldn't respond to yourself. If you don't want to be sold and pitched to, why should you be selling and pitching other people? And building a business, growing a business, scaling a business, it's the long game. It's not a short, easy, quick fix. If anyone has ever read the book, The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster, by Darren Hardy, who also wrote The Compound Effect, what's the first thing that you do when you get onto a roller coaster? You pull that safety harness down. Because in business, there's a lot of ups and downs. There's twists and turns. Sometimes that roller coaster even goes backwards. And that's the truth in business. Sometimes there's forward progression. Sometimes there's backward regression. But whoever stays in the game long enough, in the most genuine and authentic way, are the ones that are going to come out on top. So for me, I'm personally frustrated with the lack of professionalism with a lot of these business professionals, right? They may think that they're a business professional, but just as you said, if you're more interested in just handing out that business card, whether it's in person or virtually, how interested are you in actually helping people? If you were actually interested in helping people with what you do, you know what stance you would take? You would look to build a meaningful connection and relationship with them first, to even see if those individuals qualify or are even interested in what you have to offer. Because if they're not, you've still built a great connection and rapport where they could refer you out to people that maybe do fit with what you have to offer. But Brad, between you and me, there's not enough business experts or business professionals and coaches teaching this. There's a lot of coaches out there that are solely focused on teaching people just how to get sales and make money. That's where the attention has gone to. The money doesn't matter. The money shows up when the impact is felt. So, do you have something that's actually impacting people and making a difference in this world? Or are you just looking for some dollars to drop in your bank account?
Yeah. Yeah, that line about the roller coaster reminds me from the movie, one of the Harry Potter films where they're riding in the nighttime bus. The guy's saying, "It's going to be a bumpy ride."
It is.
and, and that's just the nature of being a business person, being an entrepreneur. These things go up and down. And when it comes to building relationship, I mean, people look at the internet and all these different online platforms, and especially one like LinkedIn, as this huge opportunity. You know, there's millions of people there. And so they're imagining that if I can just, you know, reach as many people as possible, just simply get that reach, then that's going to be the answer to all of my problems and all of my prayers, and my business is just going to grow up. And my feeling about it is, you know, something that I've taken when I go to conferences, instead of imagining that I'm going to run around and meet, you know, maybe 100 or more people at this large event that has maybe 1,000 people attending, I'm going to be imagining much more, well, like, what person will I meet here who's going to become a lifelong friend? And if I come away from this gathering, this next 3 days, with just one person who I've met that I really connect with, then I'm going to consider that this was time super well spent. And going on LinkedIn, I think you really need to take a similar attitude of, you know, when you're connecting, especially with someone who is new, who you've never met before, it's kind of like, well, how can I engage with this person? How can I actually interact with them on a real personal level? So let's talk about how you do that. Like your way, we mentioned the LinkedIn layer cake. Like, what is your I noticed that you're doing a lot of things. Like when you are, say, posting on the platform, you're using a wide variety of types of ways to reach out to people and to engage with them. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the reason why I call it a layer cake from a visual standpoint is, if anyone is familiar with a layer cake, there's a large base at the bottom, and then there's smaller tiers that obviously go up. Now, if you remove one of those tiers, guess what happens? It topples over. So if you remove any of those layers, it's not going to work. So what I teach is based on what's helped our company and our business grow and scale to where it is today. And the big base at the bottom, the foundation of what needs to be put into place, is your LinkedIn profile. I talk about this often in content, and I just did a post earlier today on a new feature, which is, if you have creator mode turned on, which I always recommend you do, you can add a call to action link at the top of your profile, where it's to book on your calendar, register for an event, download a free gift, whatever it is. Your LinkedIn profile is your calling card. It's where people get to know you for who you are and what you do. But what people need to understand is that when Microsoft bought LinkedIn out about 8 years ago, they embedded something called SEO, or search engine optimization, because what people fail to recognize is, yes, LinkedIn is a social media platform, but it's also a built-in search engine. That's why there's a search icon at the very top, because you can search for whatever you want. You can search for people. You can search for groups. You can search for companies. You can search for content. It's a search engine. Now, if you're looking to build the best type of business on LinkedIn, you have to think about, what are the searches that I want to appear in? So I always tell people, think about things from the passenger side perspective, the PSP, not the DSP, which is the driver side perspective. That's your motive. You have to think about the motive of the person on the other side of the computer screen. So if you're familiar with who your ideal client or power partner is, the people that you would connect most genuinely with, what is that individual typing into the search engine that will enable your profile to populate, so they can then either view and connect with you and start building that connection? So you do need to have that profile filled out from top to bottom, from a proper headshot for your profile picture, a background photo that clearly states your zone of genius and your expertise, headline that has specific keywords that obviously are optimized so you appear in those types of searches, an about me section that tells your story, not selling or pitching, making sure you're mentioning all your experiences, your volunteer experience, your licenses and certifications, your skills, awards, but also personal recommendations. Credibility is everything. If someone were to go to my LinkedIn profile and you go to the bottom, you'll see my personal recommendation section where I have accrued 497 written recommendations over the years. Now, I always tell people, please try to find someone on LinkedIn that is teaching LinkedIn that has more than me, because I want to meet that. I want to meet that individual. I want to meet that person that has close to 500 written recommendations, because that's someone that I should be networking with, because they're obviously doing great work. I let my work speak for itself. So when someone goes to my profile and they see that there's almost 500 people that say, yes, this guy knows what he's doing, how can anyone argue with that? You want the credibility of what you do to speak so loudly that you don't have to sell and pitch to people. They see that you know what you're doing. Now, the second layer,
Yeah,
once you have your, yeah,
before we go on to that second layer, I just want to underline LinkedIn profiles, compared to all the other social media platforms, this is probably the biggest reason to be on LinkedIn and to use it in the way that you're describing, is that the profile is completely where it's at. I mean, it is the one place on the internet that you can show all the different aspects of who you are and what you do and who you help, and the social proof and your call to action and all the rest. I mean, it's really kind of amazing in terms of, especially when you turn it around and you're wanting to go and look for people that you want to partner with or connect with. You can go to anybody's profile, and if they are using the platform well, you can learn so much about them, way more than if I go onto YouTube or if I go onto Instagram. I'm not going to learn that much from an individual's profile as I will by looking on LinkedIn.
No, I agree 100%. And what people also have to understand is that, Microsoft, because they own the rights to LinkedIn, also partners with Google and Yahoo and Bing. So not only are you appearing in the searches of LinkedIn, but you're also appearing in Google. And I invite everyone to Google themselves and see what comes up first. If you were to Google me, one of the first things that you're going to see search engine wise populate is my LinkedIn profile. And if you have everything optimized the right way on LinkedIn, you're going to start attracting the right people, even from outside search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing, to your LinkedIn profile to grow your network that way. So it is extremely powerful. But, as we slide into the second layer of this, is the build of your network. And this is really important. And this goes back to, Brad, something that you and I spoke about earlier, which is that spray and pray methodology, where, you said you get connection requests and you're hesitant to accept because you're afraid a sales pitch is going to, come in on the back end of that, which happens more than we would like. And it's the truth. And the fact of the matter is that you have to think about two types of connections. And what I teach in my course and my consulting and when I speak is two types of connection buckets. The first connection bucket is your ideal client connection bucket. So that individual, from an industry or professional title standpoint, that is best suited and will get the best results from what you have to offer, whether it's a product, a good, a service, a course, or an offering. So you're not looking to connect with just anyone and everyone. You're looking to connect with people that would truly benefit and get an ROI in some way, shape, or form with what you're offering. The second type of connection that you want to have are connections that I call power partners. So power partners are people that you can network and connect with for introductions and collaborations. Something that my wife and I focus on are the teachings of the book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. Wonderful book. It's the first money mindset book ever written, and we always suggest people to read it. And amongst the many nuggets that are in that book, Wallace talks about one specific thing in general. Live in a world of creation and collaboration instead of a world of competition and comparison. So, what we've doubled down on is forming these meaningful connections and these power partner relationships where things like this can be done, where Brad came and did a guest spot on my podcast. And now I'm on the Standout CEO show with him. And now we're mutually benefiting from becoming connections, because there are people that I'm going to impact within his network that resonate with my message. And there's going to be people impacted by his message from my podcast and my listeners that resonate with his message. An army of two, such as this, is twice as strong as an army of one. So when you have the understanding that your net worth is in direct correlation to your network and vice versa, you will start taking more care of the types of people that you're connecting with. So do not send connections to people or accept connections from people that do not fit into one of your two connection buckets, your ideal client connection bucket and your power partner connection bucket. And that's the second layer of the layer cake.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking of making an impact, Connie is saying, keep preaching, folks.
Yeah. We will,
Thanks.
Connie, don't worry.
All right. So we've got our profile all filled out, and now we're establishing our mindset around who is it that we want to relate to and connect with on the platform. So I assume the next layer is actually beginning to make some of those connections.
Yeah, so as you start building those connections and you start getting people to accept your connection request, the next step is, well, how do I start to build the relationship with these people without selling or pitching? Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, you never ever send an outgoing message to someone that you've just become connected to. You have to let the connection, what I call marinate, for about 48 to 72 hours. So you don't message the person for about 2 or 3 days, because a lot of the people that are using automated software, which again goes against the user agreement of LinkedIn, you can get kicked off and they'll delete your account immediately, is when you become connected to someone, all of a sudden, boom, you get this 18 paragraph long drunkalog verbal vomit message from someone trying to sell you and pitch you and click this link, book a call, check out what I do. This could get you another $50,000 a month. Would you like that? So again, you don't want to lead with any connection that way. Now, after the 2 or 3 days is up, so you're going to connect with people each day, but you're waiting 2 to 3 days. When you do reach out to someone for the very first time, I have a very specific structured message that I teach people to send. And it's obviously different for each person in each network because they have different connecting points. But I'll give you an example, and I call this the magic formula. It's, in my opinion, one of the most genuine and authentic ways of how to message someone on LinkedIn. And the first step is, when you message someone on LinkedIn, your opening line should be a very soft, warm, and welcoming introduction. So instead of saying, hi, Brad, or dear Brad, comma, space, indent, next paragraph, how are you today? How is business going? Are you looking to, all of those, you want to stay away from that. Instead, you want to say something along the lines of, hey, Brad, so great to be connected to you. It's warm, it's open, it's welcoming, it's inviting. The second thing you're going to do within that structure is what I call bridging the gap or lowering the drawbridge. You want to create a connection point between you and the person that you're messaging, where they're reading that message and they're going to say, oh, That makes sense. That's exactly why Scott is reaching out to me. So, Brad and I have multiple connecting points, but I'm going to use the podcast connecting point as our bridging of the gap. So it could be as simple as, hey, Brad, so great to be connected to you. I noticed that you had a podcast, as do I. Would love to hear how things are going with it. Share more about what I'm up to with mine and how we can support one another here on LinkedIn. Now, I've done two things. Number one, I've stated the obvious connection point, the podcast. So when Brad is reading this message, he's not going to say, why is Scott even reaching out to me? Instead, he's going to say, oh, that makes sense. Scott has a podcast. I have a podcast. That's why he's reaching out. But the second thing I did, which is I used the second most important word in the English language outside of someone's first name, and that word is support. So there have been actual scientific studies done proving that when someone reads the word support and says it in their head, it actually triggers their brain to release a chemical called oxytocin. Now, for those that are not familiar with oxytocin, that is the warm and fuzzies that we feel. So just like dopamine or endorphins or serotonin, oxytocin is our feel-good brain chemical. So people are feeling good and relaxed and open to when they're reading this message. And the third and final thing that you do is you finish with something called a CTA, a call to action. Questions lead to answers, statements lead to nowhere. If I just said, Brad, let me know when's good for you. Well, he's not going to tell me because I haven't asked. But if I simply say, do you have any time this week or next week for a call or a Zoom? Now, I'm asking a specific question that's going to lead to a specific answer. You have to ASK to GET. You have to ask in order to get. And the third layer, obviously, is just that, is reaching out to people in a very genuine and authentic way to start forming connections, trust, and rapport from online to offline within that 2 to 3 day marination period of when the person becomes a connection of yours.
Yeah, I love that. That's really generates some of that oxytocin.
Yeah,
It's always going to
it
do you
helps.
some good. Getting to doing something. I mean, people respond well to how you make them feel more than anything you have to do with what you're actually saying or information that you're sharing. So let's talk a little bit about the other kinds of things that you might be doing besides reaching out and connecting and messaging with people. I mean, the platform is a social media platform. There's all kinds of content creation opportunities. And when you're in creator mode, that's literally the mode you want to be in on the platform is, okay, what meaningful content can I be creating that's valuable for the people who I want to be reaching? And so how do you approach your own content creation on LinkedIn?
Well, this is the fourth and final layer. So obviously you've optimized your profile. You're building the right kind of network around ideal potential clients, customers, but also power partners. And now you're messaging people the right way. There's two types of people on LinkedIn. There's people that are natural networkers, those that are going to be interested in getting on a phone call with you. They're not going to have any hesitations. They want to talk with you. But then there's what I call spectators. And there's people on LinkedIn that just sit in the stands and they just watch the game as it unfolds. Now, the game is directly linked to the content that you provide. So as you provide value added content, that is going to build the know, like, and trust with the spectators, where after enough time of engaging and being felt that they're being spoken to with the content that you're providing, they're going to start reaching out to you. I generate more leads now from people responding to my content than me actually messaging people, because when you're consistent and you think about the needs of the people that you're connecting with, you're going to start drumming up that business automatically because, again, you're speaking to people's pain points or the holes and the gaps in their business. And that's where content comes in. And that's also what I love about LinkedIn, because the content that you can create, as you mentioned very early in the broadcast, Brad, is so diverse. It's so interesting, whether it's a general post, whether it's a poll, whether it's a LinkedIn Live or even a LinkedIn native video, whether it's an article or a newsletter edition or a discussion in a group. There are so many significant and different ways to create content on LinkedIn. It can make your head spin. So, what I like to do is I like to create a very streamlined process. So if anybody is watching live or on the replay and you're thinking, well, Scott, what should I post and how often should I post and what type of content should I create? Well, here's what you're going to need to do. So the one thing you first need to understand and realize is that LinkedIn is not like Facebook or Instagram where you have to post every hour or multiple times a day. LinkedIn, in all fairness, if you committed to just posting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you would be ahead of the game. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, if you want to break down even further, okay, I can commit to posting Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. But what am I posting Monday, Wednesday, or Friday? Monday, I always suggest starting with some sort of video, whether that's a LinkedIn Live or a native video, which means you're pre-recording it through your phone and then you are uploading it directly to LinkedIn. Now, if you're going to do a native video through your phone where it's pre-recorded, 2 to 4 minutes is your optimal length of time. If you're doing a LinkedIn Live, 15 to 30 minutes is your optimal length of time. This is not what I say. This is what LinkedIn has said. I'm just the messenger here. Now, when you are producing any type of content, whether it's video or anything else, you want to solve people's problems. You want to make sure that it's value added. How to and list types of content. 3 tips of how to do this. 3 ways to do that. 3 things to do here. When you're giving people these lists and ideas and tips that are tangible, where they can put them into action, LinkedIn will reward you for that because you're providing value-added commentary around specific pain points or things that people want to know. So you can do that through a video, number 1. Number 2, Wednesday, I always suggest doing your market research. And the best way to conduct market research is with a LinkedIn poll. Now, with LinkedIn polls, you're not asking people how they like their coffee, with cream or without. You're not asking people if they're dog people or cat people. That is called a bait post. It's going to get a ton of votes, but for what purpose? Now, if you owned a cafe or if you had a coffee roasting company, then that would be viable. Now, maybe you owned an animal rescue shelter. That would be a viable post. But if you're a marketing professional and you're just looking to get votes to try to beat the LinkedIn algorithm, think about your business credibility over the amount of likes and comments you want to get. Whenever I am conducting a poll on LinkedIn, it is always with the sole purpose of how can I find out what my audience is struggling with so I can fill that whole gap or void with some additional content. So an example could be, what are you struggling most with on LinkedIn right now? Number 1, content. Number 2, sales. Number 3, leads. And then again, people will vote throughout the day in the coming days. And whatever vote gathers the most response, where I'm seeing, okay, that's the biggest struggle point for people. That's the biggest hole or gap in people's businesses. Then on Friday, I can take that market research that I've done, and now I can create a long form post up to 3,000 characters. If it's over that, I can turn it right into an article or a newsletter edition, educating people and informing people on what they want to know, which is, how do I improve my lead generation? How do I improve my content creation? How do I generate more sales? Because I asked that question 2 days prior in my market research poll. So everything is structured in the way that you're creating content is again, from the person on the other side of that computer screen. How can I create content on LinkedIn each week that is filling that whole gap or void in someone else's business where I can bring them closer to me by educating and informing them instead of pushing them further away by just selling and pitching to the individual? So when you put this all together, you have this layer cake of LinkedIn. You've optimized your LinkedIn profile. You're building the right kind of network. You're messaging your new connections the right way. And now you're providing value added content that is leaving them better, asking nothing back in return except for building that true, genuine, and authentic connection.
Wow, that's great. Really, tons of value right there. This is the section where if you're watching on the replay, you want to rewind and go back and take notes on all of those three levels right there. That was brilliant. So
Thank you.
there's one more thing that I'd like to ask you and go into a little more detail, because I know I'm a big proponent of live streaming and using live video because it creates real in the moment possibilities for engagement and conversation with people who attend live, which I think has huge advantages and huge benefits in terms of what we're talking about at the beginning here, in terms of actually being able to make genuine engagement and connection with people right in real time. And you can do all the things that you're just talking about. You can actually ask questions and do your own market survey with people on a live stream and be getting the same kind of information that then you can take and use later on down the road. So right now, you're going live, I think, twice a week. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about your approach and how you've been using live video?
Yeah, so I go live if it's not a holiday. Yesterday was a holiday, so I did a pre-recorded video yesterday. Just, a lot of my network is stateside, so I'm not going to expect people to, on a day off, to sit on my training. So I did a pre-recording. But I typically do Mondays and Thursdays for my trainings. And everything that I do within my lives is based on something that my network needs to know. So a lot of what I do, and just to kind of give you an example, I always do poll questions twice a week. So I'm always gathering market research from my network. So the way that I structure things, people ask me all the time, how do you keep coming up with content? How do you keep finding topics to talk about with LinkedIn? Well, I keep asking questions, because when you ask questions, you're going to get answers. So I don't post anything on Sundays. I do post Monday through Saturday. On Saturdays, I do a poll question because people are very active still over the weekend, because there's a lot of people that can't be active during the week. So they're most active on the weekend. So I capitalize on that by asking a specific business question on a Saturday, which gives me enough ammunition and enough information around the pain points of people within my network to then do a live training on what I asked on Saturday on Monday. So I'm gathering all of that information over a 48-hour period. So again, much like the example I gave earlier, I'm always asking questions to get answers and then providing that commentary through a live video that I do between 10 and 10:30 a.m. Eastern on Monday. On Wednesday, I ask another question. So I don't do go back to the same poll. I'll do a new one. So I'll do another poll question. And where I get a lot of my poll questions from is I do look at what people are posting on LinkedIn. I do listen to the conversations that I'm having and some of the complaints that people have and things that they're struggling with. And, something that I always refer back to is something that my dad used to tell me when I was a kid growing up. And he said, Scott, when one person says something and how they feel, there's 9 others that feel the same way. They're just too afraid to say it themselves. So I know that if someone is telling me they're struggling in XYZ area, there's a ton of other people that are as well. So I'll pay attention to those things. I'll ask another poll question on Wednesday, which will, again, give me information and ammunition to then do another live on Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern to then talk about what people can do over XYZ. So again, I'm always leaning on my network to give me the information required in order to do those live videos. I don't just go live on LinkedIn and talk about whatever. I am always making sure that it's something relevant to my network, but also something that people want to know. And that's why the LinkedIn poll questions are so vital to all of our businesses. And if they were leveraged the right way, you would never, ever run out of content. So, really leaning on the market research side of things will give you the topics required to do these live videos on to create the connection, the rapport, the trust. Because again, no one ever buys anything from anyone that they don't know, like, or trust.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really amazing what you're doing with your poll questions and having it lead directly to content that you're doing like the very next day.
Yep.
And it's one of the things that I think most people who are doing any form of online marketing are missing, in that they just don't talk to their audience enough. You know, it's like it's the trick that most people are missing, and you can't do it enough.
Yeah, there's no harm in talking to your audience. Again, you want to build the connections, and video, much like this, how we're communicating, content is king, but also video is king. It's the top of the mountain, because there's no faster way to build the connection and the rapport and the trust and the visibility and the reach and all of those things that we're looking to than through video content. And listen, every master was once a disaster. I was not good on camera right away. I've been doing this now for 9.5 years. So people ask me, well, how do you go live without having any notes? Well, I have bullet points of what I talk about, but when you've given thousands of talks, you're going to get pretty good at being able to talk right off the cuff. So again, it's just like anything else. No one goes to the gym once and walks out looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It takes time, it takes repetition, it takes practice, and it takes consistency. And that's the same thing with video.
Yeah. Here, here. All right. So we're just at the end of our time together today. If people want to reach out and get connected with you and actually say, okay, I've heard all this stuff, Scott, I'd like you to help me implement it, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, obviously, you can find me on there. But my website, scottaaron.net. You can book a call to see, if I'm a good fit for what you're looking to do. Or you can directly email me, scott@scottaaron.net. But, again, you can find me on any and all social media. And if you're looking to step up your LinkedIn game and really start learning how to harness the power and the skill set that you have and work smarter and not harder, I would love to assist you in doing that.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll make sure that links to your site and to your LinkedIn profile are in the show notes. And Scott, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been really fabulous.
Well, Brad, again, grateful for the connection, grateful for the opportunity, and thank you again so much for having me here today.
All right. And for anyone who is still listening at the end, I just want to remind you that if you would like to get a hold of all of the archives, all of the episodes, all of the show notes, all of the videos, and or listen to your heart's content, you can binge throughout the entire archive by going to standoutceoshow.com. And until next time, so long.